All right, bro. It's going to be a great day. I'm excited. Are you? Say yes. Coming at you today with a slightly important, kind of a little bit of a serious message in a way. It's important that I get this out there to people so that those who have ears to hear will hear and they'll thank me. In 2006, I had this transformational experience, and it was specifically on November 30th of 2006, and it's kind of one of those experiences where people say they've been enlightened, they achieved enlightenment. I felt like that happened to me on that day, and I changed. A new soul came over me, and I became different. Not only different, but I became this enlightened being from just merely existing in the body before to literally overnight a massive transformational experience. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I mean, literally, I was at the office, in an office downtown in a high rise. A lot of guys in my office that I had working there, and a regular day, 10:30 in the morning, sober as a judge, and I'm in tears. Talk about weird. Crying tears. I didn't know why. I went and had a heart-to-heart talk with one of my general managers, one of the generals, Chris Matheson, down in the coffee shop, and tried to explain what was going on, and I had no idea. So I went home early and I said, I'm out of here today. I don't know what the hell's going on. It was a euphoric feeling that just struck me. I was on a Thursday, and it lasted for the next 3 days over the weekend. Something really powerful changed. Yeah, I shot this monumental video 10 years to the day from that happening without even realizing it was the 10-year anniversary from that inspirational moment. And I'll link it here. It was about how I'll link it here. You can watch it. You may have seen it. A lot of people did. It was a powerful video about how the mass awakening will happen. And that's not what this video is about. But I thought I would tell you a little bit of a story, give you more of a background as to where I'm coming from here. A few weeks before I shot that video, I wrote my very last article. I used to be a blogger. I used to write articles and blogs. And so I wrote my very last blog on LinkedIn. And at the time I had been like feverishly studying Napoleon Hill. Law of Success, Think and Grow Rich, like around the clock. Law of Success around the clock, like just obsessed. I realized that it was the top work of all personal development. I learned that it was like the mastery of all masteries of all personal development courses. That and the Master Key System. Those would be the two top pinnacles of all personal growth and development. So I wrote this article about Napoleon Hill's experience on Armistice Day, 1918. And the article was about how this mass awakening that I talked about in the video a few weeks after occurred on this one special day. Now, Armistice Day, 1918, November 11th, is a special day because it was the day that the war ended, World War I. And the way Napoleon Hill describes it in his articles at the time, he says that he was having a writer's block, a mental block. And he was trying to realize his dream, his boyhood dream of publishing his own magazine. He couldn't quite get the thesis and the introduction right, but he'd been working at it for years around the clock. It just never came out right. All of a sudden, it was November 11th, 1918, and something just throws him out of bed in the middle of the night, just lifts him up like a force. And he's living in a high-rise building in downtown Chicago at the time. And goes outside in the streets, and people are everywhere. And he's just like, what is going on? Why are all these people outside? What is this feeling? What pulled me out of bed? Started talking to people, and it found out that war had ended. You may have seen the newspaper articles and the songs like John Lennon wrote. War is over. War is over is based on Armistice Day. Now I think we call it now every year since then. I believe we call it Veterans Day. But because there's only really one Armistice Day, and that's November 11th, 1918. Oops, did I say 2018? We're coming up on the 100-year anniversary. November 11th, 2018. Now, what the heck does that mean to you? What do you care? Well, here's what's going on. And I think that everybody should know this from my point of view. Yeah, I reached a really like high level in a company, a young age. Started our own organization, ended up becoming a bank. Like we basically purchased a bank. It was a defunct bank, but we purchased it and did a ton of business. So had a really lot of experience in the banking and banking world, specifically in like mortgage lending. And this thing all like it fell out from under me when I wasn't looking. I just had my head down, doing the best I could, running an office. We had expanded to over 100 people. Giant office, 13,000 square feet. 100 people in the office, jamming, phone room, just jamming on the phones, making calls, doing it, giving big speeches in front of everybody, motivating, meetings every day. It was great. So all of a sudden I had the rug pulled out from under me. And the business shut down overnight. I mean, literally, like, we were doing a massive amount of business. $250,000 in revenue, like generating in a month. Imagine that. Freaking king of the world, man. $250,000 in a month. To zero. Now, I can laugh about it now, but it was absolutely devastating. It was miserable, and the worst part about it is that I didn't want to accept it. I didn't want to admit what was happening. Like, there's no way that these banks could be collapsing and we can't do any more business, because our business was relying on the banks. So Lehman Brothers goes down, Bear Stearns goes down. Now Lehman Brothers was a giant institution, like what, 100+ year old institution, a dominant player. Went down to nothing. Bear Stearns did the same thing. Little banks like World Savings and other mom and pops that we were doing all this business with, all of a sudden they're shutting down. And I'm just like, what? Bank of America buys Countrywide. Countrywide shuts down. I mean, I'm thinking, what is going on? This is just like beyond me. Here I am, like we're just like, no, it's going to turn around. Like, it can't be. So finally I had no choice. I mean, there's no money coming in. All the money that I was saving up was going out to pay people their commissions, pay the rent. All of a sudden, the rent was $13,000 a month. My rent. And so I'm thinking, dude, we're done. The electricity bill, the expenses. I mean, oh gosh, that was just the rent plus marketing, all other costs. So I mean, it was like literally a month or two later, boom, we're done. We closed. So we went on to another location, just to try to keep the dream alive, thinking that that's going to turn around. We can still do it. We can do it. We can make it. Well, we'll cut our expenses down to almost nothing and cut the staff down. We'll do it. And we did that until basically got drained down to basically nothing. I mean, no cash, no car, sell the car. Everything was pretty much, wiped out. That wasn't an asset. Like any cash was gone. Investments liquidated. 401ks liquidated, Roth IRAs, savings, petty cash, gone, wiped out, dude. Like literally, it wasn't overnight, but it was pretty much overnight. So this guy calls me up. I wouldn't consider him a friend at the time. In fact, I really didn't know him directly, but this happened a lot at this time because I had reached the #1 position at this large company before this, a couple years earlier. And so, you know, in sales, out of 10,000 people. So every young guy, it was basically all guys that worked there. It was really like a boiler room environment. Have you ever seen the movie Boiler Room? Totally like that, you know, just, you know, testosterone and guys going crazy, just fun as hell. And I reached the top, the #1 position. I'm not telling you that to brag, but I'm telling you to give you perspective. A guy calls me up, and he worked there too. He knew me, I didn't know him. And he says, "Hey man, I respected what you're doing and all that." I said, "That's cool, man. Well, you know, things are hitting the fan, shit's hitting the fan, and we're all screwed basically." So he's like, "Yeah, that's why I want to come and meet with you and talk to you." So he shows up, his name is Dave Masters. Meets myself and my partner at the time, my partner Taylor Greer, a man I loved to death, always by his side. And Dave gives us basically the entire plot. He draws out the entire master plan on a blueprint diagram of exactly like why the financial system collapsed, what just happened, why we got our asses handed to us, and who was in charge of. I don't even know this guy. He knows me, knows of me. Taylor doesn't know him, but he's telling us all this information. We're just thinking like, why? Why are you telling us this? I don't have the answer why, but he was definitely called to give us that information and warn us as to what was going on. And he told us about derivatives. Something called derivatives. Now mind you, this is 10 years ago. So he lays it out and he says, "You think that what just happened, you know, you guys had your asses handled, you think that was crazy? Well, Gavin, there's this massive derivative bubble that's much bigger that's going to pop." And he said, "It's going to pop." And he was thinking it was going to pop very soon at that time because it's much bigger. And the derivatives, just to give you an idea, nobody knew about derivatives back then. Nobody. I never heard of derivatives, and nobody knew about derivatives. Nobody in the financial world. I mean, you could talk to these guys. They didn't know what derivatives were back then. This is 2008, and I'm hearing about it from this guy. Derivatives are, it's where the trillionaires gamble. If you're a trillionaire institution, that's where you gamble. That's where you play, and you place your bets. Now, derivatives are like basically usually they're these giant bundled package of securities. Most of them ended up at this place called Deutsche Bank. After all this stuff, Deutsche Bank somehow ended up carrying the bag on something like 50 trillion. That's with a T. There's no way for you or me to even quantify what 50 trillion looks like, but if you look on Google and search $1 trillion compared to $1 million in $100 bills, you'll kind of get an idea of what it's like. And now they've got 50 trillion of them. I'm going to put you guys on hold for a little bit, and I'll come back right where I left off. I'm going to catch this beautiful sunrise and do a little sun gazing. If you're doing sun gazing 1 hour after sunrise is safe with 2 eyes, but after it reaches past 1 hour, I've trained myself where I can look at it with one eye, no problem, at a time, you know, as it's much brighter. So back to my story. Taylor and I leave our lunch meeting with Dave Masters and head back to the office and get back to work, and just resonated with us, this whole thing with this giant derivative bubble, the puppet masters behind the scenes that he described to us. And fast forward a few years, I fell victim to the whole December 21st, 2012 Mayan calendar, thinking that was going to be the end of the derivative bubble that was going to pop at that time. And it was just a lot of hype and news, and nothing happened. I'm glad, because it kind of like helped me prepare. And so then fast forward now, all these, it's 6 years later after that. Now we're in 2018. And, I'm definitely not a doomsday prepper, because we're not going to face any doomsday. I'm just telling you right now. You can get that fear out of your mind. It's not going to be a doomsday scenario. That's for darn sure. We're going into a very special time. It's going to be an enlightened world. It's like a new earth, a new paradise. But that doesn't mean that there isn't going to be pain for those who aren't ready to go into that new world. And so the purpose of this video is to give you a warning as to what's to come based upon the insight that I have. So hear me out. You know, I still do believe in recycling, but it's sad. I found out that the recycling just goes in the same place the trash goes. So we gotta do something about that when we take the power back. It was sometime late last year that I discovered that the good guys are actually behind this entire thing. There's actually good guys and bad guys. It's like a movie. But these good guys are working on the inside, and these insiders are ending the Fed. Because at the end of the day, it's the Fed. You think about it. It's the Fed that Ron Paul wanted to audit. You know, it's the Fed that was set up after you read the book about the creature of Jekyll Island. I mean, just look into it. So these insiders had a plan to end the Fed. And these insiders are actually part of the Fed. And it wasn't like some conspiracy stuff, because I'm not really into all this conspiracy woo-woo, all that. I mean, I think it's great. I like to be informed, but I'm not obsessed with it. I used to be over the top. And when I got burnt in 2012, December 21st, Mayan calendar, it was all a flop. I realized that this has just consumed my life. I'm done. But this isn't conspiracy. If you go to the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, they've got a comic book on their website called The Road to Ruta. This is like a comic book originally put out in the 1980s. The comic book, it talks about this grand plan of these good guys, and it's interpreted perfectly by Bix Weir. This little girl goes in, and she's going in from a black and white world into a color world and experiencing gold, like an actual hard currency, for the first time. So I did a great talk on it in audio. I'll put it here. Listen to that. It's like a 10 or 15 minute audio that I just freaking killed it on. It will explain that whole theory as to why the good guys are in charge. So these good guys developed a solution for the people, like a way out for the people to not get wrecked. And they basically published under this anonymous name, and nobody really knew about it at the time. It must have a bunch of nerds. And here we are 10 years later from the time that it was first published. They called it Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Now, I want you to think about something really hard. If none of this stuff is true, there is no $50 trillion derivative bubble, and everything's great in the financial system, and the banks are not really in trouble like with Deutsche Bank, because if Deutsche Bank does have 50 trillion in derivatives and that pops, everything goes down. It's over. That system is gone. So if that's not true, then this whole idea of Bitcoin electronic peer-to-peer cash system would probably take like another maybe like 10 or 15 or 50 years to adopt for the rest of the world. Maybe a long ass time, you know, it could be 50 years because we've got to unravel this old system. However, if there's some good guys involved on the inside of the Fed, and they actually have a plan to take it down and not bail out these banks this time, like we did last time in 2008, then that system goes down and it's replaced with a new system where the people have their own money. Reel back a couple more years again, back to 2012 time frame. There's this freedom fighter who became an expert in commerce. He was presented this incredible problem, and he was like one of the few people who understand who actually knew how to really, in a way, solve it. So what he did is he did an administrative process on the big giant Federal Reserve and put them into default. After they went into default, he placed a lawful commercial lien on them. Commercial liens are financial weapons. So it's like literally a financial weapon. More powerful than most any other weapons there are. But few people know how to use them, what they are. But he does, and so he placed this on them after they went into the default, and that commercial lien prevented them from renewing their charter, where they could no longer renew the charter going forward. And here we are now in 2018. They actually threw the guy in jail just recently. His name is Winston Stroud. He's a freedom fighter. He's a gentleman who really never harmed anyone. There was no injured party. And when there's no injured party, I don't believe there's any reason anyone should be in jail. No one was injured. Now that means physically or financially. No injured party, no crime. That's what the common law says. So remember that when you ever try to judge someone for being in jail or committing a crime. If there's no injured party, no crime ever committed. And so this fine gentleman who was a freedom fighter, he ended up in the slammer. Clearly you see why. Somebody was mad. So let's tie this story together with a nice ribbon and a bow on it for you, so all you patient, fine folks can have this package land right in your lap. Armistice Day. Remember I talked about Armistice Day. Napoleon Hill's great story, end to World War I, and war is over. There was joy everywhere. This amazing feeling that united throughout the world. It was like this powerful sensation sent through everywhere. Joy. We're coming up on the 100-year anniversary of Armistice Day on November 11th, 2018. It happens to be the 11th day of the 11th month of the year, plus it happens to be the 11th of the century, meaning that 2018 added together equals 11. So all of these numbers align in a galactic alignment to where it becomes a really powerful day spiritually, galactically. There's a very good chance that Alan Greenspan and the boys behind the Bitcoin project, the guy who actually created all of this electronic system, Alan Greenspan, who's still alive today, and the guy who was running the Fed in the 80s and beyond. There's a very good chance that this time, when Deutsche Bank begins to crumble, they're not going to hit the stop switch, because it's very possible that he may be the only one who can actually press stop. He built the whole system starting back in the 60s. That was his design. He was the one that built the electronic trading and financial system. I tell you all this information because I care, and because now's the time to not get ready for the end of the world, because it's definitely not going to come. However, what will come is no access to funds electronically, no access to money at ATMs, no access to anything on credit cards or debit cards. And the entire transportation industry, because our world all depends on this transportation infrastructure of electronics, will come to a halt. And that will stop deliveries of, food to Walmart and sodas and all this stuff. Now again, it's not the end of the world, okay? Things will be okay. However, those who have this information and they stocked up on some water bottles and some extra food and cash on hand, a few $100s cash, $20 bills, maybe some silver, a few little pieces of silver piece, and definitely, absolutely, Bitcoin Cash. Bitcoin Cash can be stored on a hard wallet or a paper wallet, literally with paper. Bitcoin Cash can also be stored on a ledger, which is like an encrypted wallet. It's the safest way to put it. But besides all the money stuff, just having all these little things ready, water, some food for a few months, a plan as to what you would do with no power, because the power would go out, and you definitely can't go to the ATM and get money. You definitely can't use your credit card and go on Amazon and buy something. So there's a very good chance they're going to let it all go on Armistice Day, this special day. But it's a reason to celebrate, because we're going into this new world, this new financial system, and it's not a new world order. This is a new world where the people are in charge. You and I, we get to reign. And if you actually go back and read the Declaration of Independence and the Articles of Confederation, not the Constitution, those two documents, you'll understand more that it was actually the people that had all the power. And they call them states, call them e-states. And each state was a nation. There was a federal government in Washington, D.C., under the jurisdiction by the zip codes, but each state was its own nation. So we're going to be going back to that. That's something to be excited about and to look forward to. But in the meantime, this video is to warn those of you who have ears to hear and eyes to see, out of a thorough understanding of the last 10 years of my experience, to come to this point of insight. Because on Armistice Day, November 11, 2018, I definitely want to have some water, definitely want to have some storable food, and I definitely want to have a plan of what I'm going to do if I can't access anything electronically, if I can't get cash, and if I don't have power. Definitely going to have a plan of what I'm going to do. Doesn't need to be doomsday prepper's plan, but it's got to be something to be ready, okay, to survive. Firewood's another thing. Got to have that. This is the last I'm going to say about this. And I hope to God, I pray to God that I am completely wrong, and that this is all just a freaking some crazy dream, and everything is completely fine with the financial system, and it's going to go on the way it is for the next 50 years. I pray to God and hope that's the case. I truly do. I didn't want to come out and tell you guys this, but now, because the chances are well over 50% that this will happen, I had to say it. So let's pray that it isn't, but let's plan that it is. Done. One more thing. Well, what's the most valuable thing you could have to barter with someone else, to other people? Let's say this did happen. I would say the most valuable thing, you may surprise you, but it's not food, it's actually not money. It's cigarettes. Cigarettes are the most valuable thing you could have. So get some cartons of cheap cigarettes. Not because you smoke, but it'd be wise to have those around, because those would be extremely valuable to trade with as you need something else. This did happen. And if it does happen, just to give you a little insight, it's not going to last forever. You may be without power and electronic system, and all your money would be wiped out. You had money in savings, it's all gone. All that, just so you know. But then we'll be going into this new world, this new system, based on cryptocurrency. And the old system will be gone. All the debts will be forgiven, but any money that you had would be gone, because it would be gone, up in smoke. Right, so I just hope that it doesn't happen, but I'm not really on the place of hoping. I just want to be informed. I want to be ready, just in case. And I want to get back into life, man, because it's not something I really like to think about. And I haven't thought much about it, but now it's like staring me right in the face. All these 11s. These 11s are lining up, dude. Maybe you remember another day, which was an 11. Huh. Interesting, 11, don't you? So now we've got 3 11s, right? The year plus the year, 2018 is an 11, the month, and the day, November 11th. And it's the 100-year anniversary of Armistice Day. It'd be the perfect day if it were planned by the good guys to let things go. To literally let them go. And that's all it takes, is just to push of a button. Love you, bye.